The HOA fined my wife for terroristic parking in our own driveway. They called the cops. Then my wife pulled out her ID and 3 officers left like they'd just seen the ghost of J. Edgar Hoover. What happened next? Let's just say the police came in hot and left real quiet once they saw who my wife really is. It started like any great suburban tragedy. We unpacked the boxes, waved to the neighbors, and 3 hours later, the HOA slapped us with a $450.00 welcome fine. The charge? Terroristic parking. Apparently, my wife's SUV was 6 inches over the imaginary line that separates our driveway from some sacred HOA sidewalk real estate. Enter Sharon Barkley, HOA president, part-time menace, full-time clipboard enthusiast. She looked like she conditioned with vinegar and ran meetings like a minor dictator with a caffeine addiction. Her first words weren't welcome to the neighborhood, but your vehicle violates Regulation 7C, paragraph 14, line 2. Now, my wife, Layla, doesn't do drama. She erases it with facts. She didn't flinch, didn't fuss, just calmly looked at Sharon like she was watching a raccoon try to open a Rubik's Cube. Sharon, on the other hand, went full banshee. She whipped out her phone and dialed 911 like we were hijacking the HOA newsletter. She told the dispatcher there was a domestic threat in her neighborhood. That's right. Sharon Barkley called the cops because my wife parked at home. 2 patrol cars rolled up like we were holding hostages in the garage. One officer actually crouched behind the birdbath. The moment was so tense, even the mailman skipped our box. And just as I thought I'd have to explain to a cop why I was wearing pajama pants and a waffle in one hand, Lila calmly reached into her purse and pulled out her badge. Not some neighborhood watch ID. No, this was government grade, shiny, and carried the kind of authority that makes TSA agents sweat. The lead officer blinked, saluted, and turned to Sharon with the kind of voice they use when you're about to be very, very embarrassed. "Ma'am, step away from the driveway immediately." Sharon's jaw hit the metaphorical pavement like it owed her money. And Lila? She just smiled the way she does when she's 10 moves ahead and 3 emails into fixing a national security problem before breakfast. The cops apologized. Twice. And drove off without another word. Sharon, meanwhile, stood frozen like someone just told her calorie labels were fake. I didn't say a thing. I just leaned against the mailbox and sipped my coffee, feeling the sweet breeze of justice flow through the neighborhood like a passive-aggressive whisper. If HOA Karen thought this was over, she hadn't read the fine print in her own rule book. If you're gonna yell, "I know my rights," make sure you're not doing it to someone who writes federal case law for breakfast. Sharon thought she was the sheriff of suburbia until the real badge showed up. But her next move? Oh, it involves a projector, a false accusation, and the moment she realizes who my wife really works for. Stick around, you're gonna love this next chapter. Sharon's citation packet arrived like a love letter from a bureaucrat who'd binge-watched courtroom dramas and thought threatening gnome was a legitimate legal term. 9 violations, each dumber than the last. 1 for our lawn chairs being provocatively angled toward common space. Another for a supposed flagrant wind chime duet during peak HOA meditation hours. I hadn't seen this many footnotes since college. Lila, though? Cool as a frosted pie. She read each accusation like she was decoding gossip, not government. Then came Wayne, Sharon's loyal clipboard carrier, part hall monitor, part medieval town crier. The man looked like a potato with a badge and stalked our trash bins like they owed him money. Every Tuesday morning, like clockwork, he'd show up with his measuring tape and incident log, no 3 suspicious banana peel placement. One day he even brought a decibel meter. "It's for the grill," he muttered like he'd just uncovered a war crime. Lila simply smiled and offered him iced tea. Wayne blinked like no one had ever shown him kindness or hydration. But the real moment came Thursday afternoon. Wayne stood outside, documenting our recyclable bin placement, God forbid it was 2 inches off the concrete pad, when Lila walked up, holding her little black notebook. "Wayne," she said calmly, "do you know the municipal code number for surveillance without consent on private property?" His pen stopped midair. You could see the gears trying to turn in that foghorn chin. He stammered something about authorized observation protocols and dropped his clipboard. Like, literally, the thing hit the ground like it fainted. Sharon, watching from across the street with opera-level drama, clutched her pearls. Or maybe her laminated HOA charter. Lila just walked away, notebook in hand, sipping tea like a sitcom detective. That's when I realized we weren't fighting chaos. We were dealing with insecure middle management, dressed in pastel power suits, and trauma from unreturned library books. And Lila, she was building her case, one absurdity at a time. They wanted quiet compliance. We gave them calm confrontation with a side of legal pepper spray. But Sharon didn't take it well. She escalated the fines, the threats, and even started dropping anonymous complaints in our mailbox. Lila just smiled, because she knew what came next wasn't a tantrum. It was a takedown. Stick around. Sharon's about to learn what happens when an HOA tries to outregulate a federal analyst with receipts. The HOA meeting started like every monthly civic meltdown, folding chairs, weak coffee, and Sharon standing front and center with a PowerPoint titled Preserving Standards in a Time of Suburban Decline. Real subtle. The first slide? A blurry screenshot of our Ring camera footage, zoomed in so aggressively the pixels looked like Minecraft. This? She looked around the room like she expected gasps. Instead, someone coughed and Bob Wilson muttered, "Looks like a crock pot." Sharon pushed forward like she was on trial at The Hague. Then came the Amazon collage, 12 photos of our front porch deliveries from the past month. Sharon called it suspicious drop patterns. I called it Prime Day. Lila sat in the second row, legs crossed, wearing a sweatshirt that said, "Civility is a trap." She flipped through her little black notebook with all the boredom of someone watching reruns of a show they wrote. Sharon pointed directly at her and screeched, "You're not who you say you are. I have evidence." That's when Layla's phone rang, loud, crisp, and with the ringtone set to Mission Impossible. She answered without even standing. The room fell into hush mode. "Yes. Witness secure. Continue cover. Affirmative." Then she hung up like it was just a call from the pharmacy. Half the room dropped their coffee. Bob, the retired colonel, stood up and saluted out of instinct. Sharon froze. Her face bounced between red, white, and ghost. "You heard that, didn't you?" she snapped at the crowd. "This is what I've been warning you about. She's a plant, a spy, a deep state dandelion." You could practically hear the neighborhood group chat lighting up. Lila turned, smiled politely, and said, "Sharon, the only infiltration happening here is the mold behind your decorative birdhouse." The room exploded in chuckles. Even Tom, Sharon's clipboard-carrying deputy, suddenly found the wood grain of the table deeply interesting. That's when Sharon realized she hadn't brought a knife to a gunfight. She'd brought glitter glue to a cybersecurity briefing, and Lila hadn't even opened her folder yet. They thought they were chasing lawn violations. Turns out, they were chasing a woman with 3 security clearances and 0 patience for tyranny by tulips. And now, Sharon's HOA presidency isn't just cracking, it's collapsing. Don't blink, because next, Lila's dropping receipts, subpoenas, and one accidental confession caught on mic. By sunrise, Sharon's surveillance squad had officially become the most obvious covert operation since someone tried to tail a cheating husband in a school bus. Tommy, her tech-obsessed nephew with the stealth of a marching band, parked his blue sedan 2 doors down, facing the wrong direction, wearing sunglasses so big he looked like a retired blackjack dealer. Lila, ever the unbothered suburban ninja, gave him a cheery wave each morning like she was greeting the mailman. Sometimes she even tossed him a breakfast bar. He never waved back, just scribbled furiously into his spiral notebook labeled Suspicious Patterns. By Wednesday, things escalated. Greg, our conspiracy theory neighbor turned surprise ally, discovered a listening device hidden in the decorative birdbath near our porch. It was duct-taped to the underside of a ceramic turtle. We named it Sharon Jr. and gave it a tiny rain poncho. Lila even played opera through it one afternoon just to mess with the audio feed. Sharon's team, meanwhile, had upgraded from recording walk-bys to full-on stakeouts. One guy, bless his soul, tried to hide behind a ficus tree. He blended in like a walrus in a wedding gown. Then came the big gotcha moment, or so they thought. At 11:08 p.m., Lila walked to the curb and handed a manila envelope to a tall man covered in tattoos who stepped out of an unmarked Crown Vic. Tommy, sweating and recording from his car, gasped like he'd caught a drug exchange. He uploaded the clip with the title, "Felony Exchange Caught Lila, Cartel Mule." But the man in the video? That was Special Agent Marco Reyes, counter-intel, decorated, and very much not into HOA politics. The next morning, Sharon blasted the video across the HOA Facebook group with captions in all caps like, "Our neighborhood is a crime hub," and "Wake up, sheeple." The only thing missing was a blinking gif of an eagle crying. She didn't realize that posting surveillance of a federal agent doing his job, especially while narrating it like a bootleg documentary, was a one-way ticket to a cease and desist letter wearing aviator shades. So now the HOA board is watching the video, the FBI is watching the HOA board, and Sharon, she's dancing one toe away from a subpoena. Next episode, the fallout from Facebook fame, the agent who knocks, and why do you have a permit for that gavel, is the line of the week. By the time Sarah Mitchell knocked on our door, her hands shook like a soda can after a tumble. "She knows about my divorce settlement," she whispered, like Carol had ears in the mailbox. Lila invited her in, and within 5 minutes our dining table looked like a crime scene-themed scrapbook. Crumpled fines, old HOA emails, even a letter where Carol threatened to escalate to community embarrassment unless Sarah trimmed her hedges into less provocative shapes. Who knew shrubs could get someone blackmailed? Apparently Carol did, and she'd weaponized HOA rules like a middle manager with a vendetta and a laminator. Turns out, Sarah wasn't the only one with receipts. Bob, our resident Vietnam vet and unofficial porch philosopher, arrived with a manila folder labeled Stupidity Files. Inside, handwritten notes Carol had left in people's mailboxes, unsigned but unmistakably her, suggesting donation opportunities in lieu of citations. Linda Wilson followed, dragging a filing cabinet on wheels. "She fined my daughter for glitter," Linda hissed. "Said it was airborne sparkle pollution. They all thought they were alone. Turns out they were just waiting for someone with clearance to unite the rebellion." Lila stood at the center like a courtroom general, organizing testimony with the grace of someone who's seen dictators fall with less evidence. She read every fine, cross-checked every timestamp, and treated emotional trauma like legal artillery. "This," she held up a color-coded spreadsheet, "is not community management. It's racketeering with better fonts." Even Greg showed up, bringing a USB-labeled Carol MP3 with audio of her muttering about who deserved to live near the clubhouse. Spoiler, it wasn't us. And just when we thought it couldn't get juicier, Tommy, the very surveillance sidekick, slid into our DMs with a confession. He'd been recording everything Carol said, just in case she turned on him. Turns out paranoia's a boomerang. His tapes included one golden moment where Carol screamed, "I don't care if she's CIA, I run this zip code." "Oh, Carol, that zip code's about to have your name removed from the welcome sign." Now the projector's loaded, the witnesses are lined up, and the HOA board's last meeting is about to get biblical. Want to see what happens when a petty queen meets federal footnotes and neighborly rage? Stick around for next part, because someone's about to say this meeting is adjourned. Permanently. Carol had her gavel, I had Google Slides and the righteous fury of a neighborhood that'd been fined for inflatable pool flamingos. The screen lit up like Christmas and IRS season had a baby. Carol Henderson stole $47,382.19 from this neighborhood, was slide 1 in 48-point font, bolded, underlined, and color-coded in HOA blood red. The crowd gasped. Carol choked on her cucumber water. Each click after that was a thunderclap of evidence, bank transfers to her personal account days after board-approved landscaping contracts, HOA fee hikes that mysteriously aligned with her luxury purse collection, and a handy pie chart labeled, "Where Your Money Went, Spoiler, Not Sidewalk Repairs." Then came the testimonies. Sarah stood, holding a withered garden hose and her dignity. "I got 11 citations for an herb garden that attracted birds with agenda," she said, her voice shaking but firm. Bob followed, laying down his Purple Heart next to the HOA rulebook Carol loved so much. "I fought actual communists," he said, "and I've seen less control-freak behavior from foreign governments." Then Linda, clutching her daughter's therapy bills, whispered, "Carol fined my kid for unruly hopscotch. That's not governance. That's psychological graffiti." The room was so quiet you could hear Tom's guilt sweating. Then Maya stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply tapped her phone screen and up popped a live video call. An FBI SEAL, a stone-faced man in a suit. "Good evening," he said. "This is Deputy Director Marcus Kane of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I understand you have questions about Agent Hayes." Carol's face melted like ice cream in a sauna. The silence cracked when Bob, out of pure reflex, saluted Maya. Carol stammered, "This is a setup. I know my rights. I demand to see a supervisor." The FBI agent blinked. "Ma'am, we are the supervisors." That's when 2 agents in plain clothes walked in, flashed badges, and moved toward Carol with the slow confidence of people who file paperwork that ruins lives. She screamed, lunged for the gavel, and was intercepted mid-rant. Her final words before the cuffs, "I am the president of property values, bless her delusion." She went down squealing like a deflated HOA bouncy castle, but the question still lingers like over-fertilized grass. What's in the rest of Carol's files? Hit that like if justice tastes sweeter than HOA lemonade. Drop a comment if your neighborhood has a Sharon. We're digging deeper. And not just metaphorically. The HOA shed was supposed to be sacred ground. Carol once said it stored essential materials for community order, but judging by the padlock and motion sensor alarm, you'd think it held nuclear secrets, or maybe her frozen soul. After her arrest, the board voted unanimously to open it. Greg, being both the handiest and pettiest man alive, brought bolt cutters and a Bluetooth speaker that played Ride of the Valkyries as the door creaked open. Inside? Not exactly national treasure, just mountains of outdated HOA pamphlets, 17 clipboards, and a drawer labeled "Fines in Progress." Also a mirror. Just a mirror. Facing the chair. Turns out, Carol had been recording her own speeches, every last rant, every gabble slam, every "this is unacceptable" declaration, like Nixon in suburbia. Greg hit play. The neighborhood heard Carol narrate citations like bedtime stories. Violation 143B, tacky wreath. In off-season, Violation 204C, trash bin facing slightly northwest. It was less a filing system and more a shrine to petty tyranny. Bob, sipping lemonade nearby, muttered, "I've seen cults with less paperwork." Inspired or maybe possessed, Greg held a bonfire. The HOA shed was emptied, repainted, and repurposed. In a move both symbolic and petty, he installed a tiny stage and named it the People's Forum. First town hall topic, can we please bring back flamingo lawn ornaments? Second topic, whether the HOA acronym should now stand for Heck Off Abigaila. A nod to Carol's equally unhinged protege. Lila brought brownies. Bob brought bourbon. Sarah brought her daughter, who smiled for the first time in months. Then came the real twist. Greg reached behind the filing cabinet and pulled out a tiny black ledger. Carol's final secret. It wasn't about finances. It was a list titled Threats to Order, and next to Lila's name was a scribbled phrase, possible spy, dangerous, avoid direct confrontation. She had suspected. Carol had known, and still picked the fight. Ma'am, get out of my neighborhood, indeed. The shed's gone, the gavel's buried, and the lawn chairs are finally free. But the ledger? That's going in a glass case, right next to the burned copy of the bylaws. Hit like if poetic justice gives you life. Drop a comment if you've got HOA horror stories. And subscribe because next time, we're unsealing the legend of the porch swing that sparked a civil war. Sharon may be gone, but her spirit lives on in one bizarre ordinance banning mystical disturbances caused by excessive tinkling. You heard that right. Wind chimes outlawed for psychic pollution. 2 weeks into HOA rebirth, a new enforcer rises, Abigail Pritchard. She's like Carol, with less charm and more crystals. Abigail claims the sound of neighborly wind chimes disrupts her emotional perimeter. Greg's bamboo chimes, a retirement gift, allegedly caused her dog to bark in tongues. Lila hears the complaint while watering her succulents and replies with a slow blink that's more terrifying than a courtroom subpoena. Next day, Abigail posts a laminated sign on every mailbox: tinkling equals trauma, cease and de-chime. Abigail files a formal petition titled Stop the Sonic Siege. At the emergency HOA meeting, she brings in her spiritual therapist over Zoom to testify about energy leaks and harmonic aggression. But just as she begins her dramatic monologue, Greg, bless him, accidentally hits play on his speaker, a recording of Abigail yelling, "This neighborhood is a vortex of vibrational garbage," from last Thursday. Caught when she thought no one was listening, the crowd erupts like a busted sprinkler line. Her spiritual therapist disconnects mid-cringe. If you're going to speak on energy balance, maybe don't scream at tomatoes. Also, some peace comes with a light clang. The wind chimes are back, Greg's adding cowbells, and Lila just found a zoning loophole that allows musical fencing. Think this is over? Think again. So what did we learn? That HOA tyranny thrives when no one speaks up. That clipboards break under collective resistance. That truth, no matter how quietly it steps, always rings louder than a gong when it lands. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, never underestimate the neighbor who smiles, waves, and knows where the federal forms are kept. If this story made you laugh, cheer, or side-eye your own neighborhood watch, then go ahead, hit that like button, drop a comment if you've ever dealt with your own HOA Karen, and subscribe, because next week we're diving into the saga of a community board that tried to outlaw porch swings for seductive swinging. Yeah, that happened. Justice might be blind, but around here, she's wearing gardening gloves and she brought snacks.